Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Boston Bankole and it's such a pleasure to have you here again. If you are joining for the very first time, wow, it's great to have you. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for your consistency. It keeps me going. And today I am super excited to have two amazing people to have a chat with us. And today we'll be talking about how to transition from a middle management role or your usual individual contributor positions to a senior leader positions. And I have two amazing senior leaders, to tell us, all about how to make that transition. Okay. So first, I have Esther here with me today. Esther, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. Boston, how are you? Thank you for having me on your channel.
Awesome.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. The pleasure is more mine. People will find out why in a very short time. And then I also have Kamal here today. Kamal, thank you. Thank you for being here with me today.
So my pleasure, Busuma, and I know it's we had those conversations for a bit, so I am glad to be here. Finally glad to be here. Yeah.
Amazing.
So Busu knows the cheat code. She also knows the cheat code. There's a special cheat code. Yeah.
Well, I hope people would believe that there's not so much cheat codes. I'm just privileged to know you both and be able to approach you to come on this channel. So thank you so much. First, I want to say thank you to you both for all that you're doing for our community and your thankless service. I hope we're thankful enough, but I mean, your kindness and giving yourself to others, helping people's careers here in Canada. And I think that's amazing. I really celebrate and appreciate you for that. Okay, we start with the very neat and nice stuff. Tell us about your journey in Canada. I'll have Esther go first. Tell us about your journey in Canada. How has it been for you? Was it a great move? Would you do it differently? With all that you know now, right?
That's such a loaded question. How many hours have you got? Well, I'll tell you like the summarized version. So I've been in Canada now for, I don't remember exactly, but it's not been that long.
Yeah, that's a veteran.
5 years?
Oh,
about 5 years. I moved here with my husband about 5 years ago. And in that time, it's been a journey. It's been a lot of learning, unlearning, relearning. It's been a lot of resilience and perseverance. And it's also been a lot of self-discovery. It's stretching out of your comfort zone, realizing new limits that you have, and basically just trying to take you one day at a time, I would say. So prior to moving to Canada, I was in the management consulting space. I was doing a lot of work in the strategy and operations space, right? Moving to Canada, because it was familiar and was comfortable, I wanted to continue in the consulting space. Can I just say it took a bit of time? Just breaking into the job market, being a newcomer, it took a lot of time. It's a lot of resume writing, it's a lot of learning how to write your resume, it's a lot of sending out applications, a lot of, we'll go in a different direction. I had never had those kinds of emails in my life. But then I went from getting 2 to 10 to like 50 to like 100. That's why I said it was a journey. But then when I finally got into when I was able to break into the space, I actually ended up with multiple offers after, I think it was 6 to 8 months of trying.
Wow.
Right? So it took a while. So sometimes when people say, oh, I love your journey, I wish I could be like, I'm like, pray specifically.
Not.
No, it took a while. It took a lot out of me also. But then I started out with Deloitte. I was there for about 3 years. So I did a lot of it. Again, management consulting was familiar. So I decided to start there. But I said to myself, with what I had learned, it made sense for me to start from a place of familiarity and then break in, than to try my hands at something new and realize that I could fail at it. So that was also something I had to unlearn. Comfort zones, right? So after that, then I moved into the industry. I'm now with McCain Foods. I lead the global technology change management team. And it's been interesting. It's been an interesting journey.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. I love asking these questions because it just helps people to know you'll get there. It could take a bit of a time, but you'll get there. When we see you now, we can't even remember those days happened, you know. Okay, Kamal, over to you.
I had a slightly different journey, and I'd say I was grandfathered by the almighty power of global multinational that I was working for. I was with the same company, and that helped, but it didn't stop what happened later, which I'll share as well, because I moved with the same organization from England. I'd worked with them in Lagos. They had moved me to England as an expatriate. Then I quit. Yeah, I know, I quit and chose to come
to London. Come on.
as like a bells and whistles expat, for that matter, like all bells and whistles, and I chose to leave because of the we had gotten the permanent residency. So here's the opportunity. Once I arrived in Canada, I was living in a different province in a different city, and then one of the managers in the local office in Montreal called me up and goes, "How come you're in Canada and I'm just hearing this?" And she's like, "I don't know." So, and she goes, "Would you love to come join my team?" This was 2 weeks after I arrived in the country.
Amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. That's what I said.
You know what, Kamal, can we rephrase the question we asked you, because your experience does not look anywhere like.
But I am coming. I did get that second experience, and that's why I said I'm coming to that point. So that was the most ideal of landings, right? You can't get any more softer landing. They did over the top try to match my income in England. They couldn't, but they went over the top to try to match that income. So right off the jump, I was on high six figures straight away. And it was, like I said, the offer came 2 weeks after I arrived in the country.
Amazing.
Within a month, I'd moved myself to Montreal. My family remained in the other city, Halifax, at the time. Like 4 months later, they joined me in Montreal, and we lived there ever since, right? And so it can sound like dream, right? Dream. No, dream quickly can turn into a nightmare, because one of the things with the journey was you can be with the same organization but underestimate the impact of country culture.
Ooh.
And the country culture, and in particular the subculture of what Quebec is outside of Canada, nothing prepared me for that. And that was the huge culture shock, even in the same organization that I worked for. And so I progressed after 3 years within the same organization, and surprisingly, there was another opportunity to return to England at the start of 2020. They had another job for me back in the headquarters in England, and I turned it down. Again, because for me, my preference was to remain in Canada with the family. We had moved far too many times, and it just made more sense to continue to maintain the stability. And so in choosing not to go to England, then I had to leave the organization because the team in Canada was quite small. Then I got into the job market. Then I had to do the CVs. Then I had to do the number of 50, 20, 100 interviews. And it was the worst timing ever. This was January 2020. I left the company in January. Yeah, so now we all know what happened after that. And so between February and, say, March, I was applying. Because I had so-called Canadian experience, it was, oh yeah, slam dunk. You will get anything you walk into. I did get a lot of calls, did get a lot of interviews, but all the way down to, first, second, third, fourth, then suddenly dry. Nothing happened, no calls. Then by this time, the China thing that seemed so far away was like in everybody's faces, because by February, and of course the world shut down like mid-March, because when everybody realized that. But what was crucial for my next opportunity where I now work was relationships. One of my colleagues at British American Tobacco in the Canada office had just moved to this bank. I remember when she was moving, and she told me she moved like in 2019. So when they had an opening, she called me up. I'd call her and say, "Hey, I see this role in your company. What do you think?" So she called the HR team and go, "You guys don't want to not hire this guy. Like, he was the best HR partner I had at my former company. So you want to make sure you get him on board." And I had my interview on the day the world shut down, March 16th. I remember going to the building, everybody was chaotic. Everything was like serious chaos. And they called me shortly afterwards to say, would like you to join our team. And I was asking, are you guys sure? Because the pandemic is on. It's like, oh yeah, actually we do need you to join our team now.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
that has been the story.
That is an impressive story still, Kamal. But there's a lot to learn from it, and I think I could jump right into the questions based on that example you gave about a friend moving into a new organization and how that kind of helped open the door for you to get into that. So I'll jump on the first question. Now, thinking about the questions around how do you make a change as an individual contributor into a senior manager position or a senior leader position, what's the role of networking? What's the role of just having that connection? I have seen firsthand though how, people come to you immediately, you make a change to ask about opportunities in that new place, but does that really help if you're making the switch from an individual contributor position to a senior leader position? Maybe you want to start first, Esther.
So I want to unpack the question a little because I feel like there are layers to it. There's the piece around the place of networking, and then there's the piece around making the switch in itself from individual contributor to a more senior position. So maybe I'm going to pick on the piece around networking. If you think about the concept of networking, it took me a while to also realize this. Networking is really just kind of ensuring that people around you understand what you can do. So they think of you. So ask yourself the question, when someone thinks about Esther, what are the three things that come to mind? Professionally, personally, community-wise, whatever. Everyone has an impression of you and what you can do. Networking is leveraging that impression to kind of access opportunities in a nutshell.
Wow, that's a brilliant way to put it, for sure.
So if you think about leveraging your network, then it helps you to ask the question, what do I want my network to be able to do for me and why? And at what phase in my life? There's some people you come up together, you're really good friends, and then you're going through life together and people end up in different places. And then when opportunities open, they think of you because, again, to that question, when you think of a person, what are the three things that come to mind? Because your network is important. It's a lesson we don't learn early, especially as Nigerians, right? We're very good at wanting to do everything on our own, but there's only so much you can do by yourself, and there are only so many places you can be at once. We haven't figured out the whole concept yet of leveraging our network and I don't want to use the word deliberate because it starts to sound it doesn't sound natural, but there is a deliberateness to networking. So depending on where you find yourself in your life, now you want to make that switch from individual contributor to the next level. The question you then need to ask yourself is, what do I want my network to be able to do for me? Do I want my network to be able to help me understand what it means? Do I want my network to be able to help me understand where the opportunities are? Do I want my network to be able to help me settle as I start to make that transition? Do I want my network to be able to help me understand how to thrive in that situation? You need to ask yourself that question and then test your network that way. If it's to find people who can help you understand what the switch means, then you need to ask yourself, who can I reach out to? Can I reach out to Boston to have a conversation around, here's what I'm thinking, what are considerations, what are blind spots I might be missing? What else do I need to be thinking about? That's leveraging your network. But the question is, do you have a Boston in your network?
Wow.
Networking is two-pronged. It's understand what your network is able to do for you. And even in your network, what do they know you can do? So that for me is almost kind of the foundational question you need to answer to be able to then figure out how to use it to make a switch.
Amazing. Do you want to chime in, Kamal?
Esther touched on a really great point. I like how she put the piece on intentionality. Okay, it does not become contrived, but it is planned. And my favorite phrase about networking is, by the time you need one in your network, it's too late to build one. And so I really love that. It reminds me of how intentional I need to be about what who I want within my network. But the what I want to spend a bit more time on is the unintentional networks that you build through your character and your contribution. Because you will find those ones you seek if you plan to seek them, but then there are those who think of you, like Esther said, they're not necessarily known to you. You didn't even seek a relationship with them formally or informally, but through interaction and through contribution and through value you've demonstrated and delivered, they want to be part of what exactly, and they think of you in that light. So I told you about the opportunity I had just by hierarchy of interaction with this individual who referred me for my next job. She was an executive assistant within the finance department. And there was only one moment I had to, she recalls the moment clearly. And what she kept repeating was, how you made me feel was what stood out for me. And I didn't think she was someone I would need to call on one day. I didn't do it because I thought I would need her one day. So she became an unintentional part of my network that I called on just because there was some kind of basic rapport, but then she remembered how I made her feel in the interaction we had.
Wow.
So I'd say for the ones you plan to do, for the ones you plan, you need, plan for them as you intend to, if your career plan, as you build your career plan to switch into more leader roles where you manage teams, seek those types of people. But then as you work with senior leaders who are already part of your organization or part of the community you belong to, senior leaders who may be in that same capacity, as you work with senior leaders, understand that they will remember what you demonstrated in a small project role, in a team. And they may not need you now, but when they're calling on someone, they go, oh yeah, I remember.
I totally agree.
Amazing on that project. I want her to lead this new team. She wasn't a leader, but the way she executed amongst her peers, she was just a natural for them to refer to. And all I needed, she provided for me. So plan the intentional ones, but don't be unaware of how your character speaks for you about the unintentional networks.
Amazing. And the great point you also made was if you need someone in your network and that's when you're realizing you have that need, it's already too late. The best time to build the network is now. Thank you both. That alone is MBA quality. We can turn this to a class and it would still be awesome. Thank you so much. And the next question I have is around timing, right? Sometimes people take their time in individual contributor roles, or sometimes for people it's short. They just wonder what's the best time to make the move. Does time really matter when you're making the move from an individual contributor position to a senior leader position? Do you really need to consider the time you've spent before you make the move? Kamal, do you want to lead on that?
I think time is a function of your ambition and your goals as well. And if you set specific moments for you, and that's the thing, it works in your favor and against you. What can work in your favor all the time is readiness, because we know that being a leader or being an influencer happens independent of what you do. Shockingly though, what I found about Canada is I found in my last role, managers of teams request to be withdrawn from team leadership roles because they say it's pain. It's pain to manage people. It's easier to talk to machines and software. Having 10, 5, 4 people report to me, I don't want. Take me out, even if it means losing money, I don't care. Take me out of it. But for some, that's all they crave. They just want the next opportunity to manage teams, running team. So I think ultimately clarity in what you enjoy to do is something that you need. And so for you, time then becomes actually working in your favor, because once you're clear on the goals you're seeking, on competence, seek that first, that how competent should I be within this space? And as a function of what I do, I demonstrate leadership qualities. And then I can start to speak to my manager about that in the next role or my next iteration, I want to be this kind of leader and I want to be that kind of leader. And so once you agree on the timeline for that to happen, if it doesn't happen, what I know about the North American lifestyle and culture, remind them. I was coaching an employee yesterday and I told her this. It is important that you remind your managers about your contributions and achievements. They're human just like you, they forget just like you. So when you reminded them or set the ambition to manage a team, or you want to progress into a team leader role, set the ambition in the beginning, remind them quarterly or media, and then if it doesn't happen, understand the why, and then understand what actions you need to take to switch into that. And if the opportunity doesn't come as a take the responsibility manager of team, ask for project leadership responsibilities. And even if it's organizing non-work related events within the team, when you take responsibility for that, it's an opportunity for you to demonstrate what you can do. So I'd say time is as useful as you need it to be for yourself. The impatience we all feel about, oh, well, I'm taking too long in this role, because it can happen. It's also a function of how much of the circle of competence you wanted to fill in that role has been filled. And if you now have that capacity to come more, start to demonstrate that, because no one is going to trust you with more if you're failing at what is already, what is considered, basic and your responsibility now. Yeah.
That is such a well-rounded response, and I think we should just jump to the next question. But what I'm taking away from that basically is time is really what you make it. The key thing to focus on is readiness, and I think that's totally spot on. So Esther, I'll move to the next question, and the next question is around preparedness. And Kamal spoke about readiness. Really, how do you make yourself ready to take on our senior leadership role?
So I think the first thing I want to manage in terms of expectations is you can never be 100% ready. You don't know what you don't know, right? So I would say in the place of preparation, be kind to yourself.
Whoa.
Right. So So Kamal touched on a few things that are really spot on. So let's take them one by one. It's what do you want, first of all? Why do you want to be a leader? Leadership is not always about leading teams, and it's also not always about the way we've kind of designed it to be. So if you answer the question of why, it helps you understand what type of leader you can be. Some people want to be leaders because of the title. Great, go get it. Some people want to be leaders because of more money. Great. So understand the intention. Some people truly want to lead teams and want to flex that muscle. Some people want to manage engagement and all that kind of stuff. Some people don't. I have people in my organization who don't want to be people leaders, but they want to be leaders anyways. So if you answer that question, then what does readiness look like to get there? If you want to be able to make more money, readiness could look like certifications. It could look like the industry you work in. It could look like switching to data science. It could look like anything like that. So that's why you need to understand why first. If money is the intention, you truthfully will not make the kind of whatever you define money to be doing certain careers that if you switch up and maybe go into cybersecurity. That's talk, right? 100%. Now, if you want to be
some HR will never earn as high as some people. Let's just put it out there.
That's a really valid point. So you need to truly understand your motivation so that you're also not dealing with frustrations, right? So it's, what does readiness look like? It's that I now have what's all these like certifications you cannot fully pronounce in one breath that are going to open doors for you. Great. There you go make money. Go get it. If you want to do because you want to be a team leader, the question is, are there opportunities where you currently are? Or does it even have to be where you are? Could you be like a team leader can you find adjacent situations that also give you that satisfaction, even if you don't find it in your place of work? That's another example. If it's for the title, again, look around you. You need to do an environmental analysis to say, can this situation give me what I want? And then what does readiness then look like for that? So there's a deliberateness to it. For some other people, they're not looking, but it happens anyway. So the question is, what skills do you then bring into that situation that help you to start off hitting the ground running in quotes, but gives you the time you need to build the other skills you need? Because a lot of times I had that same problem. When I took on this role, first of all, it was such a huge role that in my mind, I struggled. I asked myself, do I want to take the position? Do I not want to? I did all that piece, but then, I was talking to my husband and he was going, what exactly are you worried about? So let's unbundle that a little bit. So we decided to go through it and I'm like, okay, I think what's throwing me off is title and my perceived notion of the role. But if I think about the strengths I bring to the role and the pieces I want to build, then that's what readiness looks like for me. Where do I want to start? Where do I want to build into? And then how do I use that as a jump off point to do the other things I want to do? Right? That's why I said in the place of preparation, you also need to be kind to yourself. Don't get high blood pressure in the process. Also, that's why the concept of time is not one that I really like to talk about, because we set all these targets and we're running these races and then you step back and you're like, who even gave me these targets that I'm chasing like this with frustration? So sometimes you also need to be kind to yourself. So to your question, readiness is about doing a very good environmental analysis of where you are and what you want. What are your incentives? What are the things that are driving you? If it's money, have an honest conversation with yourself. If it's title, have an honest conversation with yourself. If it's
what, one great thing that I also pick from all you've said is you've made an amazing distinction between functional leadership and people leadership. And people need to understand the difference between both before you start making steps as to what direction you want to take. That is what I'm kind of feeling proud about the kind of people I know and the quality that they bring, because that's great stuff. And I really thank you for those insights that you brought. Kamal, while you chime into what Esther just spoke about, I also want you to talk about that, that initial fear we have going into a senior leader position, and, the self-doubt, the thoughts around, do I really know what I'm doing? Can I really do it? And how people can really psych up themselves and bring their best self forward into those positions.
And it's such a great question, because when I moved to England, and Esther talked on the third type of leadership opportunity, the one that happens when you're not seeking it. And so I moved to England. It was a role, I was the regional head of talent acquisition, which was a role that reported into the regional head of talent management. So the way the structure was, there were two regional talent managers, one acquisition, one L&D, and we both reported to the regional head of talent management. And this region was Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So somewhere, I joined in August or something of 2013. And a few months after I joined, a reorg was announced, my role was scrapped. And I'm like, why did you guys bring me from Lagos to come and tell me that my job no longer exists? And they were like, oh, no, don't worry, we got you. It turned out that we got you was me replacing my boss, because he was let go. Oh yeah, your looks were my looks. When I got the offer, I was like, oh, I'm it now? Okay.
No, that's the word. Like, I'm it. I'm in it.
So this completely just blew. This is 6 months after I arrived in England. I just got promoted to the most senior vice president talent management role across 9 business units. I had 9 direct reports. Each of them had maybe 2 to 3 direct reports. So about 27 people in my team across 9 countries, from Russia to Senegal. It's like, okay, so where do you start from? And I did deal with a lot of imposter syndrome and self-doubt. I actually wrote my go-to escape is poetry, and I did write a poetry about it. I think the title was "When You Think You Know, When You Know You Don't." So it was a clear case.
I don't want to be in that situation when people think I know and I know I don't.
Yeah, because the expectation I had coming into the job and what they said, because obviously there were people that I trusted and people who trusted me, who believed in me, saw the potential of what I could do more than I saw it myself. So they put me in the role and the responsibility. But what did I do? I think, like Esther said, I'm a big believer on just get the work done, focus on what is in your control, and forget the glamour, the floss, the flash. Oh, now I'm this big cheese, I'm going to flex. No. I just got on with what needed to happen. And my first priority was get my team together, And even in the I don't know, I made myself very vulnerable to let them know what I don't know. I think 2 years later, one of my direct reports, and to just make it even more complicated, I used to be one of these people. I was one of them. I was in a market role just like them, reporting into a regional head. So I'm now that person. And I remember my colleague telling me 2 years later, after she was working with me, that when she heard the announcement, she had doubts that what can I learn from this guy? And I don't think I'm going to learn anything from him. But 2 years later, she can tell me that I was the best manager she ever had. And for me, the focus was, how do I get my team to be successful? So rather than I didn't want to focus on what I was concerned about. I wanted to focus on what was at stake, what needed to be done, what were the actions that needed to be completed, and take them one by one. And I was seeking help and support from my team, below my teams. I let everybody reach out to me. Surprised, just an hour ago before this call, one of my direct reports who was Ukrainian, actually Kiev was one of the cities I visited the most while I was doing that role. So my heart breaks for what is going on in Kiev now, because I have friends who still live there, and she's still talking to me today about the quality. So I focused not on so in talking to myself, I needed to exercise the demons in my head about what I couldn't do. That's why I put down the words on paper. Once I wrote that poetry down, I just kind of packed it in one corner and then went in every day, starting with the question, what am I going to do today to contribute to
difference? I think that is amazing. My takeaway is just focus on what you can do, first of all, and really, vulnerability is some power. Sometimes we think it's weird to be vulnerable, but it is some power, especially as a people leader. And I think that's awesome. We will talk about relationship reengineering someday. Because that's another beast to conquer in itself, when you're in the midst of those people and then you turn around to become their leader. Before we wrap up, Esther, tell us, were there any surprises? Like you were aiming for it, you got into it. Were there any surprises? I mean, even after all the thoughts around, like, can I not? Did you shock yourself? Were you shocked?
I think the surprise or the lesson learned was all the things I was worried about were just worries. They were unfounded. They were all in my head. Even if they were in other people's heads, the only way, I say the only way the thoughts in other people's heads actually have an impact over you is because you also entertain them.
True.
Right? So all the things I worried about, but I wasted all that time worrying. I killed a lot of time trying to be perfect. And that's the thing also about being a woman, a Black woman in corporate anywhere else but home, right? It's the rumination, it's the imposter syndrome, it's the loneliness, because not everybody gets what you're thinking or how you're thinking or the things that bother you. It's all of those pieces, but it's also the worries around, how do I then manage a diverse team that do not look like me or do not look like me at all? How do you create those true connections? How do you build those relationships? Because you need relationships to succeed in whatever role that you're in, right? So to your question, I think it comes back to what were the surprises. I surprised myself, because then I realized that a lot of the thoughts, all the worries were just in my mind, and being able to come out from that and then get very clear about what am I trying to do in my role. The other surprises were then things around culture, organizational culture, interpersonal relationships.
I mean, there's politics to it.
Yes. Then it's the it's beyond even the relationships, it's also the politics. I'm just trying to find a better word to call that, but not in a bad way. It's stepping back and learning. It's just stepping back and learning. One thing that I also try to learn very quickly is, sometimes when we go to work, we take our emotions into work. So, bringing your full self to work, that's great. I usually laugh on my team when I say, people say, bring your authentic self to work, and I will laugh and fall off the chair. Because I'm like, if I brought my authentic self to work, you cannot handle it.
Y'all can't handle it. Y'all cannot handle it.
Let us just draw the line and say, bring your professional self to work. Great. That I can do.
No, but Yikes, that you just uncover the kind of worms, Esther.
But in that case, one thing that I've also started to learn is in the midst of that, as you deal with the shocks, you also need to take emotions out of it sometimes. Don't be cold, but you get blindsided by emotions very quickly.
Sure.
That's one of the shocks I had to learn. The higher you go in an organization, you can't afford to be as emotional.
Amazing.
Because they blindside you. So it's how do you work around those? But balance. I think they were here to learn. Have fun while at it. Some things will come out of the woodworks that would deck you. You'll be like, okay, great.
Wow.
And then,
The vibe I'm getting is, why waste the time worrying? You've got it. You'll learn, you'll grow, and it will be okay, and it will be fine. So that's amazing. We spoke a lot about the imposter syndrome. I just want you to make one statement each to someone who's in that space right now and wondering, can I really handle this? And Kamal said, the demons in the head, when they scream so loudly, what do you do? I know you shared your strategy around poetry, but just one word that you can send to someone out there who could need that right now. Kamal, do you want to go first, and then Esther, and then?
If I say you've got this, it's not cliched, it's true. What you really need to believe in and do to show you've got this is tackle first thing first. The first thing you get your hands on, don't even come up with top priority list. No, the first thing you get your hands to do, tackle it and go on from there. You really have got this.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Esther?
I'm a bit critical. So when I think of imposter syndrome, I think about it in the reverse. Nobody's handing out favors in Canada. They didn't give you this position because they like you and they want you to come. No, they give it to you because there's something you bring to the table. Do that. And then learn the rest. So in the process of doing that, then you become a bit more confident in yourself, right? And then you can do the rest and the rest and the rest. So I would flip it on its head and say, you're not there because someone is doing you a favor. You're there because there's something you bring to the table. Bring that something and learn the rest as you start to go.
Thank you to you both. Oh, this is a bundle of wisdom and nuggets and all great stuff. I really cannot thank you both. Thank you so much, Esther. It was great hearing and learning from you. And then, of course, thank you as well, Kamal. It was great having you, and it was great learning from you as well. Guys, that's all we can share